Today is the second part of our SAT and undergrad webinar. So as you know, this is a 4-part webinar series. So we have different agenda. We have these webinars every week. So it's a 4-part webinar. The recordings will be available here. You can copy paste this URL, or you can just type it for your convenience. So this is the URL where you will find the recordings as well as the agenda of the future webinars. Right. SAT exam. It is a standardized test. All of you know that. So the meaning of standardized test is that whether you take the exam in India or in any country, you know, the circumstances, the environment, the question paper, they remain the same. So universities, they are able to compare different applicants. The other admissions criteria, they can vary. For example, your class 9th, 10th, 11th marks. So depending on which school you are from, which board you are from, which country you are from, the marks will change. Everything else on your application will be subjective. The only standardized thing on your application is the SAT score. That's why it is very important. Based on the SAT score, universities can compare applicants coming from different parts of the world. Right? So the very most important thing about the SAT exam is that it's a standardized test. It has a fixed pattern. So you know that, unlike your IIT, JEE or the other Indian entrance exams, it's a fixed pattern. There will be a fixed number of sections. There are fixed types of question. So no surprise in terms of the types of question. You don't have to worry about a different type of question. The types of questions are fixed. Either it's a 2 blank or 1 blank or error identification, or the types of question is fixed. The syllabus is also fixed, more or less. It has, for instance, you are not going to get any questions from, integration or differentiation. You are not going to get any surprise questions from trigonometry. So the syllabus is also fixed in that sense, which is a huge advantage over other entrance tests. There are broadly 3 sections. You already know this. There's a reading section, there's a math section, and there is the writing section. So these are the 3 categories. Each section or each component is scored on a scale up to 800. Maximum that you can get is 2400. All of you know about these things. Okay. Now when you start preparing for SAT, whether you are preparing for the first time or second time, but it doesn't matter. Before deciding to prepare, you have to pick your mode. What works best for you? Let me elaborate a bit on that. Self-study. A lot of students, they go for self-study. That means they prepare on their own. They get the books, the necessary books, and then they prepare on their own. They don't attend any classes. That is perfectly fine. There are definite pros and cons of, self-study. When you are studying on your own, you can do it your own way. You can do it as per your own schedule. There's a lot of flexibility there. Those are the positives of self-study. The negative of self-study is that sometimes you may not be motivated enough to study, and on that day you will not study. And you will have no way to compare how you are doing. So you don't know whether other people they are doing well, they are not doing well. Question: if it is difficult for you, does it mean that it's difficult for everybody? So there is no reference for comparison. You have no way of comparing how you are doing with other test takers, right? So that's the one big negative of self-study. The second method that a lot of students opt for, at least the students who come to us, obviously they are the ones who opt for classroom study. That means they sit in a classroom. There are classmates. So there are definite pros and cons. Obviously, the biggest positive of classroom education is that there is a peer group. You know where you stand in comparison to the other students in your classroom. So if you in a mock test, if you are getting 2100, and let's say you are happy about it. But when you see that the other students are getting more than 2200, so you know that you can also do that. So it motivates you, it pushes you to get a higher score than what you would have been otherwise happy with. So that's a biggest positive of classroom study. The peer group is extremely important. Second advantage is that there is a discipline. You have to come for classes. You have to do the homework. So that schedule, that having that timetable, that routine, that makes sure that you are not lagging behind in your preparation. So these are the positives of classroom study. The negative is that there is no flexibility. If the class is scheduled for 10 a.m., so it is going to be held at 10 a.m. You cannot come at 12 p.m. Of course you can come, but then you will end up missing the class, right? So the lack of flexibility is there. You have to kind of you have to adapt to whatever timetable is being given to you by your coach, by your trainers. So that is one negative thing about classroom study. Then there are students who go for the hybrid mode. Especially in today's day and age, a lot of students opt for the hybrid mode. Hybrid means they would like club self-study with say online. So online webinars are there. We also conduct a lot of online webinars. Our students, they combine again the classroom. After the classroom studies, we have a series of webinars through which we help you, finish the rest of the study material. So a lot of students go for this online, for the hybrid model. In fact, we in Jamboree, we definitely, support this hybrid model, classroom plus, online. So you choose whichever you want to, and it's very easy to add the online component to whether it's self-study or classroom study. Any questions till now? This is a silly question. What is SAT preparation? It's a very silly question, but lot of people they actually go wrong here. First of all, your SAT preparation should be focused only on SAT. Let me elaborate a bit on that. So SAT preparation it should not be targeted at your grammar improvement. It should not be targeted at your vocabulary improvement. It should not be targeted at improving your math skills, right? The only objective of the SAT preparation should be to get a high SAT score. That's why, a lot of people who pick up grammar books and start studying grammar, or people who just pick up the dictionary and start learning words, that's a very wrong way to go about it. Remember, SAT tests you on a very fixed syllabus and very fixed type of questions. So you have to learn the skills to solve those types of questions, and only those types of questions, so that you get a high score on SAT. It should not be a generic effort to improve your vocabulary or grammar. I mean, it's great if you can improve your vocabulary and grammar. But that's a totally different assignment. Then it should not be combined with your SAT preparation. If you want to get a good SAT score, the objective should be to get a good SAT score. It should not be on learning to write good essays. You have to learn how to write a good SAT essay. You have to learn how to get the vocabulary of SAT correct. Not in general. So keep your preparation focused on the SAT. Very importantly, do not ignore the essay. A lot of Indian students, what they do is that they don't prepare the essay. They don't like writing essays. As a result, they even in the mock test, when they take the full-length mock test, they don't write the essay. But that's a huge mistake. When you are taking mock tests, for your SATs, you have to write the essay as well. If you are not starting the exam with the essay, then you are actually not testing yourself. On the day of the exam, your exam starts with writing an essay. And to write an essay and then move to something else, you need a different frame of mind. So that's why it's very important for you to take the full-length mock test in full-length mode. That means while taking the mock test, you have to write the essay as well. Okay. Any questions till now? Things to keep in mind while preparing for SAT. Quality over quantity. Very often I get I get students who come to me with lots of books that that they do a lot of practice. They do different types of books. So what they are doing is that they are focusing on the quantity of questions. But you should be focusing on quality. Now, what do I mean by quality? So in your SAT, you have got for your English or math sections, most of the questions you have got 5 options, right? You have to pick one right, the correct one. So lot of students, they pick the correct one, but they are not very sure why the other 4 are wrong. So remember that the questions that you do, no matter how many questions you practice, none of them are going to come in the exam. That is a guarantee. Irrespective of the quantity of questions that you do, nothing is going to be repeated in the SAT exam. So what's the point in focusing on quantity? What is going to be repeated is the technique. The strategies are going to be repeated. The techniques are going to be repeated. So your focus should be on learning the strategies and the techniques. So let's say you got you were doing one question, you were stuck between options C and D, and you chose C. Just because you had to pick one, you chose C, and it came out as correct, right, during practicing. So that actually doesn't mean that you got the question correct. On the day of the exam, you could have picked D also, and then it would have been wrong. So when you are taking whether it's a practice exercise or a full-length mock test, do one thing, that whenever you are stuck between 2 options, mark those options on the paper, so that when you return to check later on, you can remember that you got stuck between those 2 options. And then you have to clarify with your teacher, or you have to just find the reason which one is correct and why. Again, I repeat, it's not just enough to pick the correct answer while practicing. Okay, you have to know why the other 4 options are completely wrong. If you are not doing that, then you are not preparing in the correct manner. On the SAT exam, I repeat, you are not going to get a single question that you will be practicing on. It's impossible, right? You will be getting all new questions. What's going to be repeated are the techniques and the strategies, and that's what you have to learn. So as I said, focus on quality. If you are solving a practice section for, let's say, in 20 minutes or 25 minutes, spend equal amount of time in checking. Check which ones you got right, check which options you got stuck with, and check why the other options are wrong. So equal amount of time you should be spending on checking your exercises also. Okay, any questions on what I mean by quality over quantity? Okay, so I can see a few no, so I am moving on. Time management, very, very important. A lot of students, when they take the full length test, mock test, they take the overall time. Let's say the 25-minute section you finish in 20 minutes, so they move on to the next section. Don't do that. It's not all of you know, it's not the total time. In SAT exam, it's like section wise. You have to do the section in that amount of time. If you are saving 5 minutes from a math section, doesn't mean that in some English section you'll get 5 minutes extra. That's not how it works. So be very watchful of the time. When you are taking your full length test, especially when you do it at home, make sure that you don't get disturbed. Tell your parents not to disturb you. Switch off your phones. Take only the scheduled breaks. Don't take unnecessarily long breaks. Otherwise, the scores that you will get in your mock test, they will not be close to the SAT score that you will probably get. So if you want your mock test scores to reflect where you stand in terms of your preparation, you have to make sure that you take the full length test in full length mode. Lot of people don't understand the importance of revision. In the math section, how many of you do silly mistakes? How many of you do careless mistakes? Okay, Avilay does. Okay, and who else does silly mistakes or careless mistakes? So those of you who do careless or silly mistakes, do you finish the math section ahead of the time? Avilay, Ernest, do you finish the math section ahead of time? You do, right? And trust me, this is a problem with almost every kid I have ever taught. So they do that. They are. I mean, SAT Maths is, obviously, let's face it, it's easy. So you go through the math section fast, but you don't get all of them correct because you make silly mistakes, right? And that can be easily avoided only and only. I mean, all you have to do is revise. If you finish 2 minutes in advance, go and revise. Even if you are able to revise 5 questions, you are eliminating chances of them being wrong for silly mistakes, right? So whatever time you are left with, I mean, in English there is not much to do, but it's the in the math section where you make most of the silly mistakes. So whatever time you have left, please spend it on revision. Revise every question. Students tend to revise only the questions they think are tough, but funnily enough, the questions that they think are tough, they get those right. They end up doing mistakes in the question that they thought are easy. So you will tend to make silly mistakes or careless mistakes in the easy questions. In the tough questions, very rarely you will make careless mistakes because you are paying a lot of attention to that question because you are finding it tough, right? All of you agree with me? So I'm sure it happens to everybody. Shivam, yes, 3 minutes. Obviously, it is not possible to revise every question. So revise as many as possible. So even if you are able to revise 5 questions, 10 questions, at least you can ensure that you have got those right. So whatever time you have left with, instead of going, instead of just relaxing or something, go back and revise. Okay, go back and revise the questions. Try to revise as many as possible. Right, and while you are checking, now I am talking about checking your own practice sections or especially mock test. When you are checking your mock test, please look out for a few things. Number 1, are you making the mistakes in the beginning of a section? If you are making the mistakes in the beginning of a section, that means that you might have to revise your concepts. That your concepts need to be strengthened. If you are making mistakes towards the end of a section, then it means that your time management is a problem, right? So basically, when you are checking your mock test, you will also have to keep an eye out for which part of the section you are making mistakes. Whether it's English or maths, just keep a chart of how many mistakes did you do in the first 33% of the questions. How many mistakes did you do in the middle 33% of the section, and how many mistakes did you do towards the end, right? Okay, so Himanshu has a question. I think it's I think Atharva and Mohit, everybody is answering Himanshu's question. So calculator is allowed in graphing calculator is allowed in subject test too. So revision, start the habit of revision. Even when you are taking practice test, small, if you are doing 20 questions also, start the habit of revising. For essays, it's even more important. When you are writing the essay, forget that it's for 25 minutes. Tell yourself that it's for 20 minutes. Try to finish the essay in 20 minutes, then revise for 5 minutes. I see a lot of essays where there are words missing or spelling mistakes. That those are really, really bad. So tell yourself that the essay is for 20 minutes. Forget that it's for 25 minutes. So starting now, just write. Try to finish the essay in 20 minutes. Okay, then 5 minutes you have to devote to the revision. Mohit, essay will become optional from May 2016 SAT, but universities need the essay score. So actually it's not optional, you will have to take it. So university, for admissions purpose, they will need the essay score even when the SAT exam changes in May 2016. Okay, Mohit? So you cannot get out of writing the essay. Now how to practice? This is for the now full length mock test. There is a question that is it May or March? In India, SAT is not conducted in March. So if you are in the US, then it's March, but for India, SAT is not conducted in March. So for Indian students, the new SAT starts from May 2016. Okay, now moving on, how to do the full length mock test. So first of all, make sure that you do in full length mode. I cannot stress on it enough. You have to write the essay also, take only the scheduled breaks, and after you have taken the full length mock test, make sure that you spend the rest of the day, you just check where you went wrong, do the analysis. If you are getting if in the reading sections, if you are getting the fill up the blanks questions wrong, sentence completion questions wrong, that means you have to do a little bit of your revision of your vocabulary, right? So finding out what you are making mistakes in, it's extremely important. When to practice? Have you guys taken any full length mock test? Okay, so when you're taking the SAT, the full length mock test, you should be taking it in the time when the SAT exam is going to be held. So your SAT exam is going to be at 9 AM, right? So you should be taking it in 9:30 AM, so that your brain starts to perform the best in that time slot. So if you are taking a full length mock test at like 2 PM or 12 PM or 4 PM, it's not helpful at all. Start to take the full length mock test, especially those of you who are now taking the October SAT, the October and November SAT people. Start taking your full length mock test in morning, preferably at 9 AM. If that's not possible, then 9:30 or 10, but not later than that. Your brain has to start functioning best in that period. It's a very small thing, but it's extremely important. Yes, Atharva, 2250 is a good score, but if you are getting 2250 in a full length mock test, and in the SAT it will be a little lower, because on the day of the exam you will be little I'm assuming little tense also. Okay, Ernest, 10 is also fine, but just don't do it at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I hope, has anybody taken the mock test in the afternoon or something till now? Harpreet, it's a tough question. The actual SAT can be easier also, tougher also than the mock test. As the name suggests, a mock test is a mock test. It's not the actual test, and nobody can predict whether it's going to be tougher or easier. Even in those of you who are Jamboree students, there are a lot of mock tests. You will find that some of them are easy and some of them are very tough. So, and those are all actual SAT papers. Sumit, today we are not going to discuss about what score is good for universities, etc. Today is specifically for SAT preparation. Just go to the link that I had given you earlier. We do have a session about admissions criteria and all, but we'll do it on a later webinar. We can't cover everything in the same webinar. Yes, Ernest, that's what I'm trying to say, that all the full length test papers in Jamboree are actual SAT papers, and even there you can see a discrepancy, right? Some of them are easy, some of them are really tough, but what you need to understand is that it's subjective. What you are finding easy, somebody else might be finding tough. What you are finding tough, somebody else might be finding it easy. So whether a test is easy or tough is subjective. It totally depends on on your weakness and strengths. So the SAT overall, actually the difficulty level does not vary. Understand? Okay. Now, how and when to register for the exam? I'm assuming that everybody has registered for the October SAT, whoever is taking in October. People who are taking in November, just keep an eye, just go to the College Board website. Make sure that you do not miss the registration deadlines. In India, SAT is held 6 times in a year: October, November, December, January, May and June, right? So 6 times a year SAT is held. All the registration deadlines, everything is there on the College Board website, so check it out. Do not forget to register for your test. Any questions regarding the information on this slide? See, you cannot, Mohit, SAT and SAT subject test, both you cannot take on the same day. If you are taking the SAT in October, then the SAT subject test you will be able to take in November, December, January, etc., but not in October. SAT subject test, each test is for only 1 hour. So, and you can take a maximum of 3 SAT subject tests on a day. The days are the same, you know, that October, November, December, January, May and June. So the dates, SAT exam dates for both SAT and SAT subject test are the same. You cannot take SAT and SAT subject test on the same day. So Tushar, we have discussed these questions in our first webinar. So just once the recording will be up, you can check that out. So see, it doesn't matter whether you are from commerce or science or humanities in class 11 and 12. If the university that you are applying to, if that university needs SAT subject test, you have to take SAT subject test. For science students, it's easy, you know, because they can you can take maths, physics, chemistry, biology, a lot of subjects. For humanities and commerce students, you know, you can take maths, English literature, world history, American history. These are the type of subjects that you can take. There is no economics or any commerce related subject test. Atharva, the recording of the first webinar will be out tomorrow on the link that I had given you in the first slide. I will give the link again at the end of the webinar. So I would like to end this slide with this, that repeating that you have to, while preparing, your focus should be to develop the strategies. It's how you get a question correct that is more important than how many questions you can get correct. The questions, the practice questions, no matter which book you pick up, you know, the practice questions are never ever going to be repeated in the actual SAT. So the focus should be on strategies. I hope I have made myself clear on this point, that it's the strategies that you should focus to develop, not the number of questions that you. Okay, let's try to do a question. Everybody ready? Let's first try to do these questions. There are some questions regarding SAT, ACT, etc. All of that we'll do at the end of the webinar. Right now, let's keep the discussion limited to the information on the slides. Otherwise we'll just get distracted and everybody else will get bored. So in this question, I would like to point out something. What I mean by strategies. In sentence completion, there are some words called keywords. So keywords like despite, nevertheless, they indicate contrast. That means the tone of the sentence is changing. Now if you read, it says labor union and company's management, despite their long history of unfailingly acerbic disagreement. Let's say that you don't know the meaning of acerbic, but you know the meaning of disagreement. So these two parties, labor union and company management, they disagree on nearly every issue, and they have a long history of disagreement. Despite, so basically, in spite of having this long history, they have still reached an unexpectedly. Now if two parties are always disagreeing, what is the expected result? The expected result is that they will disagree, right? So but what is unexpected? Unexpected is an agreement. So the unexpectedly they have come to an agreement, right? Now what type of agreement is that? It's tentative. What's the meaning of tentative? It's not final. So they have come to an agreement, but it's not final. So we are looking for something that is a positive word, that yes, they are not disagreeing anymore, they have agreed. So if you see the reluctant is actually the same. I mean, if you are disagreeing, then it is expected that the agreement will be reluctant, right? So but we are looking for an unexpected outcome. That's why reluctant is not an option. Conclusive is again not an option. Why? Because it says tentative. It's not final, so it cannot be conclusive. Hesitant and reluctant, again the same meaning. But we are looking for something a positive word, because if they're hesitant and reluctant, that's actually an expected result. But we are not looking for them. Onerous is also similar. It's a negative word. So that's why your swift is the only answer. So now in this question, if you read also, you can definitely solve it. But what I'm trying to show you is how to read a question, how to see these keywords, how to understand the different meanings and the different inferences or different underlying meanings of the words in a sentence. Once you're able to do that, once you're able to eliminate all the other options, you'll get to the correct answer. Those of you who picked Swift, while revising, you should be 100% sure why the other 4 options are wrong. Okay, so I'm sure all of you were able to find it Swift, but probably you would have been probably stuck about why it's not conclusive, why it's not onerous. When you are revising or when you are practicing, you have to learn to be 100% sure why the other options are wrong. So yes, I will share the link of the recorded PPT, not PPT, that's a recorded webinar, right? Onerous means cumbersome, not easy, difficult. Okay, everybody's clear with this question? Everybody's clear why the other 4 options are wrong? Let's do another question. Some of you will recognize this question, I think. There are some Jamboree students here, so you will probably recognize this question. So in this type of questions, as you can see, there are 2 blanks. So there are 2 blanks, so what you should not do, just pay attention, what you should not do is that you should not try to fill both at the same time. If you try to fill both the blanks at the same time, there's a high probability that you will get it wrong. So now let's read the question. The doctor something so frequently on disease prevention techniques that his colleagues accused him. So now here the keyword is accused. So when do you accuse something? Do you accuse something of a positive thing? Do you accuse somebody of a positive thing? No, right? So it has to be negative. So this blank has to be negative. You can accuse somebody of only something negative. So first step is to, yes, we have identified that this blank we are looking for a negative word. So let's eliminate the positive ones. Inconsistent is negative, okay, so we stay with it. Fidelity is not negative, it's a positive word. Steadfastness is not negative, it's a positive word. Inflexibility is negative, negligence is negative. Right, so what you should note here is that without even reading the first words, we were able to eliminate 2 options. Now let's go and read again. The doctor dash so frequently. So let's try to fill. Vacillated, okay? The doctor vacillated so frequently that is called colleagues accuse him of inconsistency, okay? Let's assume that you do not know the meaning of the word vacillate. Let's look at the other options. The doctor experimented so frequently on disease prevention techniques that his colleagues accuse him of inflexibility. That does not make sense. If he is experimenting so frequently, so actually he is being very flexible. So that's why this option is out. Again, let's try to fill it with relied. So the doctor relied so frequently on disease prevention techniques that his colleagues accuse him of negligence. That also doesn't make sense. If he's relying on prevention techniques, then actually he's not being negligent. So option E is out. So even if you do not know the meaning of the word vacillate, you are still able to get the correct answer. So this is the strategy that I am trying to talk about. That these type of questions, if your vocabulary is strong, if you are a good reader, you can solve it. Otherwise also you can solve it by filling the blanks together also, you can do that, but it will take you more time and there is a high probability that you will get it wrong. But if you follow this technique, pick a blank which you know what is going to be like. In this case, for instance, the second blank, because of the word accuse, we know that it's going to be a negative word. So we eliminated 2 options even without reading the first portions of those options. Then we plugged in the other 2 words, and even though we did not know the meaning of the word vacillate, we were still able to get the correct answer. Anybody has any questions? Okay, Shivam, how to increase your vocabulary? Okay, as I said, are you one of our students, Shivam? Are you a Jamboree student? So in case you are, then you have been given the word list, right? Just stick to the word list, you should be fine. Next question. So there is one grammar rule that comes very often in SAT. That is called parallelism. Let me explain to you, right? So if I say I like to eat, drink and sleeping, what's wrong with this sentence? Let's say I am saying I like to eat, drink and sleeping. Yes, so let me try to write it. I like to eat, comma, drink, comma and sleep. This is correct. Not comma and. I like to eat, drink and sleep. Now this is correct, right? If I say I like, instead of to, if I say I like eating, drink and sleep, is that correct? If I say I like eating, drink and sleep, no, right? What should it be? I like eating, drinking and sleeping. Yeah, Atharva, good joke. So right, so either you can say I like to eat, drink and sleep, or you can say I like eating, drinking and sleeping. So whatever the sentence, this is called parallelism. That means the words and sentences, they should be similar, they should have the same flow. So if you are using ing type of verb here also it should be ing. If you are not using ing, then you should not use ing anywhere. Now this is a very basic of parallelism. Basically, this is very basic of parallelism. There are now some words that come in pairs, like either or. Either always comes with or. You know that, right? Neither always comes with nor. All of you know this. So let me try to write it down. So either something or something. This is the format in which the English language works. Or neither something, nor something. Right? So here, whatever type of word, whether it's ing, whatever type of word you have got after or, after either and after or, they should be similar. After neither, after nor, whatever words that come, they have to be similar. Not same, similar. That means if it's in ing format, it should be in ing format. If it is in non-ing format, it should be non-ing format. If it's a noun, it should be a noun. If it's a preposition, it should be a preposition. So that kind of thing, right? So that is this is the concept of parallelism. It's simple, but you need some practice with that. Now with that basic information, everybody is clear about what parallelism means. It's not that tough, but I mean everybody is able to understand what I mean by similar and parallel, right? There are some non-Jamboree students here, so you guys are clear. I mean, I'm sure the Jamboree students have no issues, but the non-Jamboree students, are you guys clear? Okay, cool. Now let's look at this question again. So another technique for this type of questions is that when you get a sentence improvement question, do not read the question first. First, scan the options vertically. It's called vertical scanning. So scan the options vertically and see the points of difference. In this case, you see that 3 options have either and 2 options have in either. So 3 options have either and 2 options have in either. Now whether it should be either or in either, for that now you read the question. So the revolt against Victorianism was perhaps even more marked in poetry than, do you need the in? Do you need the in or don't you need the in? Parallel, remember? More marked in poetry then you need the in here. So all the options where you don't have the in before the either, that's wrong. So you are left with D and E. Now here you see the either or. So after either you have got fiction, and here after the or you have got drama. Both of them are nouns, sounds good. Here after either you have fiction, but after or you have in. So that is not parallel. This is wrong. D is your correct answer. Understood? Now see, all of you in school, you have this habit of reading the question first and then coming to the answer choices, right? But for SAT sentence improvement questions, do not read the question first. First find out, first scan the options vertically, to find out where what you are looking for. Once you are able to find out, then you go back and read the questions. There are some places where errors mostly occur. That's like first words of the underlined portion, last words of the underlined portion, words after the comma. So these are some common places where where errors mostly happen. This will save you a lot of time. If you are first reading the question and then trying to read each option, it will take you forever. It will take you forever to solve the questions, right? So and in the writing section, as you know, you have to do like 35 questions in 25 minutes. So you have to do these questions. You have to move these questions fast, very, very fast. These techniques, they will help you save time. So everybody clear on this question? Again, I am just trying to show you how is the strategies that matter. Okay, now reading comprehension. How many of you don't like reading comprehension? And trust me, you are not alone. I have never found a single student who enjoys reading comprehension, and that is half the problem. So because you don't like it, because it's boring, the moment you see a long passage, you become like mentally against it. It's like, oh my god, it's so tough, right? So just like if I try to make you if I tell you, okay, you have to watch an award winning Ukrainian movie, you will get into the movie with, oh my god, it's such a boring thing. Maybe it will end up being fine, great, but the mentality, the psychologically, it's really tough for students. So Harpreet, good, you are one of the rare few who enjoy reading comprehension. Lot of people don't. So now there are some shortcuts that I'm going to tell you. Just try if they work for you. They might work for some of you, they might not work for some of you, but at least try them. First of all, I will I don't know whether you know it or not. In reading comprehension passages, whether it's paired passage or the regular reading comprehension passage, the questions come in the same order in which the content come in the passage. So if there are, let's say, 10 questions in a passage related to a passage, then the questions, the first few questions will be related to the content in the first part of the paragraph. The last questions will be related to the content in the last part of the passage. So the questions are in the same order in which the content come in the passage. So that's what you have to it's like unless you see a question about the tone of the passage, that's a different type of question. if you get questions about tone of the passage, or like the primary purpose of the passage or main idea of passage, those three are about the entire passage, you know. But other questions, they always come in the same order. And what that means is that you can break down the passage. If it's an 85 line passage, you know, you don't have to read the 85 lines in one go. If you start reading 85 line passage, by the time you are in the last paragraph, you will totally forget what was in the beginning of the passage, right? So read 20 lines at a time. Just try this today after the webinar. Try this and let me know, I mean, whether you found it helpful or not. So read the first 20 lines or first paragraph, then solve the associated question. The first question is usually about primary purpose, so leave it. Don't do it at that time, you know. Do the other questions. Then go back and read the next 20 lines and then solve the associated questions. Then go back and read the next 20 lines. So when you do this, you know, you are reading a certain portion of the passage and you are answering questions related to the passage. So your understanding of the passage is becomes better. So you are actually in a better position to answer the primary purpose or tone of the passage questions by the time you are done with this. And because mentally now you know that you can break down the passage into parts and solve, what happens is that you will not be that scared. So there's another psychological advantage of this technique. You now know that you don't have to read that huge 85 line passage. Very often it will be about a topic that you have no clue about or extremely boring, right? So psychologically, you know, you know that, well, I have to just read 20 lines at a time. So it's not that boring or it's not that scary anymore, right? So try this. I have seen it help a lot of students. A lot of students have come back to me saying that their accuracy has like improved a lot. So I will be very happy if I can hear from you. I'll give you an email ID at the end of the webinar. Please email me and let me know if you found the technique helpful. Okay? Did you guys understand this technique? Yes, Ernest. As I said, other than the main idea, tone, primary purpose questions, other than that, the rest are always in the order. Any other questions? Any questions? Okay, I'll just type in the link. Right. So while solving reading comprehension questions, you know, do not use your own knowledge. So if there is any word meaning there, let's say that in this passage, what does this word mean? It's a very common type of question, right? So do not use your own knowledge of the meaning of the word. Sometimes the meaning of the word is not what they are looking at. They want what it means in the context. So do not use your own knowledge. Very often I see students do that and they go drastically, you know, wrong. Okay, Techie, please hold on for a second. We will come to that slide. We are almost, you know, I don't, probably another 15 minutes. So any questions related to reading comprehension? Just can you tell me why you guys are taking SAT? So remember that you are taking SAT to get admission. Don't lose focus of that. So the SAT is just a means. SAT is just a means to get admission. Therefore you should know what SAT score will be required for the type of colleges that you are targeting. So while you are preparing for SAT, you should have this kind of short list of universities. Let's say University X. For your profile, for your academic, for your profile, let's say the target score is 1900 plus. And the deadline, let's say, is January 1. No. And let's say University Y is there, and for your profile the score required is 2000 plus. And the deadline is December 15. And this says University Y is Z, let's say, and the SAT score for your profile is, let's say, 1800 plus, and the deadline is December 15. Let's assume, right? And for X, let's say you need you need subject test also, and for for Y also you need subject test, right? So now if you have this kind of a short list of universities ready with you, probably about 12 to 15 colleges, if you have it ready, then you know that how to plan. You know that for X you will have to take SAT subject test, you know that you have to get a minimum 1900, and you know that you have to take all the exams, and apply by January 1. So you can plan everything. Unless you have this kind of a short list, you are actually not doing it the right way. Remember, you guys only told me that you are taking SAT to get admission. So what's the point of getting let's say you keep on preparing and you got 2200, but your dream school deadline is December 15 and you missed it, then what's the point? So keep this kind of a short list handy. Only then you will know what SAT score to get, and when to take the exams, how to plan out everything. Okay. So Shivam, your question is what profile means. Okay, so we will be discussing that in the next webinar, so we'll cover that. Profile means basically, in short, your academics, your extracurricular activities, your SAT scores, everything. So Atharva, yes, GPA, all of that comes under profile. So these are the deadlines. So just go to this link, everybody. You will have the deadlines for both commerce and for all the kind of top 50 US colleges. This will help you plan when to take the exams. If you need any information, if you would like to schedule a one-on-one session with any Jamboree counselor, you can please drop an email to this ID. And when you write an email, also include whether you are a Jamboree student or not. If yes, then which center you go to, right? Then the webinar recordings would be available here. Himanshu, yes, TOEFL is required for US. Oh, sorry, Harpreet, your question was when should AP course be taken, after or before? To help with your, if you want to make a good impression on your application, then you should definitely take it right now while you are in India. After getting admission, then there is no need to take AP, obviously. You will take the courses in the university. Suraj, your question is there any alternative to TOEFL? There is another language test called IELTS, but IELTS is not accepted in all US colleges. So TOEFL is accepted in all US colleges, IELTS is not. So Kyle, your question is between IELTS and TOEFL, which one is recommended? If you are targeting the US, then TOEFL is recommended. Priyanshu, your question is if I have an SAT score, then it is required to give TOEFL. Yes, TOEFL is a requirement for non-native English speakers, so it's people like us. So it's a language test targeted for people whose native language is not English. So therefore, the SAT is a different test, a different thing, and TOEFL exam test a different thing. Kyle, your question is I will be doing my 10th in 2016, so I should take SAT after the 10th. Well, it's great actually. If you are in 10th, if you are like in class 10 right now, take it. Take it right now. When the exam is going to change, the problem is that there will not be enough mock tests. Nobody will know what the exam is going to be like. There will be not enough material to practice. So 2006, the new SAT will be a little tough to get hold of initially, right? So just take the SAT once right now, no harm.